This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast and community for creative people who value and enjoy working alone. Hello, everybody. I'm Franklin Taggart. This is Your Own Best Company, and this podcast was my idea. I am trying to reach people who love working alone, and some of us tend to be kind of introverted. Some of us just kind of tend to like to be, in solitude when we work. But for whatever reason, we just love working alone more so than love working in a noisy, crowded office somewhere. And I'm excited to welcome today my guest, Regan Espinosa. Now, I've known Regan for a few years now, and we've got a long, strange trip behind us, and I'm not going to go into all the details of that. But Regan is just an extraordinarily creative person. And I felt like that her story today would be something that would be of interest to a lot of folks, and particularly people who have ideas that just kind of come to them for whatever. Now, I'll introduce you a little bit more formally now, but first I'll just say welcome, Regan.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to connect with you.
Always and forever. Regan's first career is in occupational therapy, and she does a lot of work with home health care organizations here in Colorado, and really, just does it up. She's the one that drives to the house, does all the OT work, gets people back on their feet again. She's great at it. But in addition to that, and in addition to be a mother, how many children do you have?
We have 3.
Mother of 3 and a busy videographer husband.
Yes, motion design, and his clients are across the U.S., so they'll want deadlines at dinner time.
In addition to all of that, Regan is the self-published author of 7 books. She's got children's books, devotional books, and grief nonfiction. She's also worked on different projects for people who are doing like memoirs or memorial, projects. And she graduated from a very small high school, I'm assuming in Indiana. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. Northwest Indiana.
All right. And there were 17 people in her senior class.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that Regan was very popular.
There were some years. The junior year was hard, but once the bullies from upper class were gone, then it was fun again.
Smooth sailing. All right.
Yeah.
So there were 98 total in your high school.
Yeah.
Pretty small school.
Yeah.
Were you in a rural area too?
Very rural. So actually the movie producers for the movie Hoosiers, that is a true story, they came to our school and were going to film it at our school. We had the wooden bleachers and everything, but they just replaced the floor, the wooden floor, with like a rubber floor. Oh. And so they couldn't. But if you watch the movie and see them in the school, same thing, like rickety stairs, wooden doors that push through and things like that. Yeah.
So cool.
One stoplight, and now it's 1 stop sign. So it's like, it's gotten smaller, but still I love to go home.
And Northwest Indiana is a beautiful place to go home to. It's a gorgeous area, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, you also won a Ms. Fitness competition 24 years ago. And you're still holding on to the title.
Yeah.
Right? But you're also
I was the first one. That was the first competition for them to do. That wasn't like bodybuilding, but it was like fitness. It was just kind of this new thing that came out.
So you into like CrossFit? Is that what your deal is CrossFit?
No, it was like you went on stage, you did half, your bathing suit, and then half a fitness competition to show you have flexibility and strength and one-handed push-up and to dance to music. Yeah. So hey, I did it. I trained I turned 21 and all my friends went out for spring break, and I just continued staying at home and training. So I won then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's really interesting is that from there, Regan has become something of an inventor. Mm. And she's invented something called the visit box that you're going to be hearing about as we unfold her story for you today. But the main thing that I'd really like to cover in our conversation today is, I know a lot of people who have creative ideas, but they take a really long time for them to act on for one reason or another. Mm-hmm. You seem to have an idea, and it's a reality within days or weeks of the moment that you had the idea. And I'd really love to talk about how that unfolds for you, how that happens. Because for a lot of people, they'll have a really great idea, but they don't act on it right away. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they end up just putting it aside forever. Sometimes they end up picking it up later on in life. But we're going to be talking a little bit about how it is that you can get excited about something and then actually do something about it. Yeah. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Let's talk a little bit about the visit box and tell people about part of this story is kind of painful. Mm. So let's get that painful crap out of the way first and really go where we need to go.
That sounds good to me.
Talk a little bit about what led up to the visit box being created.
Yeah, so my father had survived melanoma cancer about 10 years ago, and then he got pancreatic cancer, and he went through an 8-hour Whipple surgery. He went through chemo, and he survived, and it was amazing. And he loved Colorado. And then COVID hit, so he couldn't travel. But, he was cancer-free, and so we were just kind of waiting for COVID, and it was like, I can't believe this. This is just an absolute miracle. The doctors in Chicago were like, this is amazing, John, And then I talked to him in the morning. He went to the dermatologist. He went to go take a bath. And unfortunately, my mom had found him, and he had sudden cardiac death. So he just died instantly. And it was quite a shock because I was on this up ramp of my prayers are answered. And then it felt like I got like a gotcha, from the Lord above. And so then I went home, but nobody could come with, like my husband and 3 kids. It was not at a time where there was vaccines or anything. So it was only immediate family, my brother, my sister, my mom, that we could be at the funeral. And at the burial, I had left a note and a picture that Neva, my daughter, drew for her grandpa. And I went back the next day after the burial, and it was upsetting to me that the picture was blown into the field. Now, it was a rural area, but it was blown into the next field for me to find it. And then a couple months later, I returned, and the picture that I thought would be a little bit more protected in a frame of my dad and I dancing at our wedding, just eroding away, even though it was a really good outdoor frame that could be used. So I was kind of tossing around the idea, and I just was like, there has to be something better than this. And I thought, I've lost my dad. I've lost my family to support me during this time of COVID. And now I've lost a note. That's it, kind of thing. I'm not, something has to be done about this. So I would say that I thought about that idea for two months. And there are times where it's like, I have an idea and I don't act on it right away. However, I've got a good relationship with God, and I feel like when he wakes me up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about it, I need to go. And so I woke up in the middle of the night. I had the vision or the video of Forrest Gump when he leaves a little note from Little Forrest at Jenny's site. And I thought, what if that blew away like the feather at the end of the movie?
Yeah.
And then maybe a couple nights later, I woke up and I was thinking about Patch Adams, and when his girlfriend dies at the casket, he reads the rest of the poem.
Yeah.
And that piece of paper he held on to, and it was like, maybe that could be kept for somebody that comes again and can read that, you know? So then I just progressed. I started reaching out to a patent lawyer, and he's like, I don't know if that exists. We'll see. And so he's like, I can't find anything. Let's do it, you know?
Very good. Tell me a little bit though. It's like, yeah, between the funeral and the visit again, you know, you were aware of the need, you were aware of a problem, mm-hmm. but you really weren't aware of the solution yet. Mm-hmm. So the thing that really strikes me is that once you became aware of a possible solution, from there, it didn't take you very long to start moving into action. So when was it exactly that you realized that what you were envisioning was a way to store precious items at a gravesite? When were you aware of that in this process?
Time-wise, it was when I went back home and the problem was still there, kind of thing. I went to visit and I saw stuff that was just like, didn't look as good as I wanted it to for my dad.
Yeah.
And so that was more of like starting to draw it out. What would it kind of look like? Yeah. And that's where I started that process. And it wasn't what it is now. You know, I think it's where we have to have a lot of grace on the journey of it, because I went through about 6 prototypes.
Yeah.
I had a great idea, and then it was like, oh, you don't like it because of this. Oh, okay, let's go back, you know?
Iterate.
Yeah.
All right. So you contacted the patent lawyer. You found out that there really isn't anything like this in the market now. Mm-hmm. And so you decided that you were going to go ahead and get behind it, start looking at how can this be made? Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So I felt like when you have that breadcrumb, use that. Like, so the breadcrumb was like the patent lawyer. And so then I use him and I say, hey, what's the next step? Like, you know what I would do? And then he's like, well, actually, there's somebody that has CAD drawings that does CAD. You probably need a CAD drawing. And I was like, okay, so do I go look for, like, just search it on the website? No, I know this guy in India. I'll give you his information. So I was like, okay. I reached out. Within less than 24 hours, he gave me a new one. You know, he gave me a CAD drawing. And so then I said, thank you. I reached out to the lawyer. I said, thank you. And I was like, you know, I guess from this, I need a prototype. And he's like, well, hey, I actually know somebody that I think has his own business doing prototypes and 3D printing. Here you go. So, you know, it was another breadcrumb. And then that guy, I asked, so do you know anything about like how it would be made, like manufacturing? And he's like, well, hey, I have a manufacturer. And then I also reached out to other people at that time. The lawyer said, you should connect with the Small Business Network for Northern Colorado. So it's like, okay. And so I got connected with other people, very valuable people, through the Small Business Development Center.
Very good. And then the story continues. You've got prototypes. You've done a lot of things. But the thing that strikes me, Regan, is that, has it even been a year since your dad died?
No, it will be in November.
Okay, so in only 10 months at this point, maybe 11 months with a little bit of change,
Yeah.
you have had an idea for a brand new product. You've gone through 6 levels of prototyping.
Yeah.
You've actually contacted manufacturers all over the world at this point, including here in the US. And you're about ready to go to your first funeral director's show or death care industry show.
Yeah.
To generate interest in this brand new product. Now, the thing is that what I know about you personally is that you're probably saying, man, this is taking a really long time.
Especially with the rotational molding for that part of it, it took like 8 weeks. Yeah. And so I just was kind of, it was, but then there's that time, but then it seems like other steps that you think are going to take a long time with manufacturing overseas, that was within a week of getting that response. So it kind of evens out, Isn't
that crazy though?
It
hasn't even been a year since your dad left. And here you are. You've got a product and you're going to a show with it. That actually, in manufacturing world, it is miraculous.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the thing that's really interesting to me is that you can take an idea and run with it. And let's talk about a couple of your other projects. The first project that I was aware of that you had done was the Walking Dead devotional book.
Yeah.
Now, where in the world did an idea like that come from to begin with?
Well, my husband loved The Walking Dead, and he always wanted me to sit there and watch it. Yeah. And I was like, I am not watching that. That is so gross. That is so I would sit in the kitchen and I would take out my Bible and I'd be like, oh, that's such a horrible show. And then I thought, you know what? Fine, I'll just sit. Like, I came home from seeing a patient. He was watching it during lunch. And so I just glanced at it. And then I was like, well, that's an interesting character. And so then we watched it. And I saw a lot of insight of what I was reading in the Bible, but in a different way. And then I just started writing it. A literary agent said, I hate the show, but I have kids in my youth group at church that talk about it all the time. I don't want to watch it because of my own personal reasons, but I need to connect to them. And I was like, well, I can put this in a book,
So you started writing it just to write it. And then you saw that there was a need out there that could be addressed here. Certainly, there are not very many other devotional books that are based on The Walking Dead. But the other thing that's really interesting is that when you go to a Christian bookstore and you look at devotionals, the selections there generally don't include a lot of popular culture. And so you were again, maybe without knowing it, you were in a groundbreaking product idea role. So what's really interesting is that you decided not to wait on somebody else to publish that book. You decided to self-publish. So tell me how that happened.
Yeah, just like you said, when you go to a bookstore, I don't know, it just seems like it's a little bit more like sweet and flowery and those kind of devotions. And so someone said, after I got 42 rejections, someone's like, if you don't have a devotional that doesn't hit older women around 50 to 75 for their Bible study, it's just not what we need. So I understand that. But at the same time, I was like, well, I really should honor the fact that I got this idea for myself. I should honor that God planted a seed, and if it flourishes, great, but if it doesn't, that's okay too. And so then I looked at self-publishing through the bigger companies, and I'm like, I can't spend $5,000. And then I just did research through Amazon, Kindle Direct Publishing. You can get a book, you can do it for free. Yeah. And so then I just said, you guys you didn't want it, but maybe somebody else would. And it's on Amazon still today. So
yeah. So the thing that's really interesting is that, you didn't let people talk you out of the idea. You just said, well, if it comes down to it, I'll just do this myself. And you've done that now with 7 different books.
yeah.
And we probably won't go into all of them, but talk a little bit about maybe, the one that comes to my mind is Santa Stutters 2
Yeah.
and Moses Stutters 2 were ones that you came up with just last year, right? Or was it the year before?
Yeah.
And it was like all of that came from trying to help your daughter feel okay about her speech. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So she had a very early diagnosis of stuttering, and I needed to bring the world, like, through her eyes, that she is not any different. And so I don't know, it's kind of like we were talking in the car, and it's like, well, yeah, Santa, he could have been saying something, because he could have just been saying, like, hold on, not laughing. He was just saying, hold on, I got more to say.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of interesting. And then I had shared that idea with her kindergarten teacher while we were talking about her growth in the class. And she was like, oh, that's a great idea. That's so good. And we can just use it. Like, I can show kids that, and they need to wait their turn and wait till someone's done speaking before they butt in at Christmas time, And so that was probably, fall conferences that we have right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is the time I should do this. And so I got it done. And I reached out to an illustrator that was through Fiverr. I'm blessed that my husband knows how to kind of format it a little bit. And then I had it printed out, and then I was able to share it with locally and do like readings. And then I reached out to like the Stuttering Foundation, and then they said, we'll put it on our website as a resource.
Yeah.
So, it was one of those things that you see something, and then it's like, well, that's a really cool idea. You write it down. And I think I've written down a lot of ideas, but some of them just kind of give you a fire under your butt.
Yeah, that's true. So both of those books, then, you were able to publish relatively quickly. I know the Moses Stutters 2 came out just months after Santa Stutters 2.
Yeah, that was through the pandemic, and I was kind of bored. So I just said, let's do this.
Yeah. That's so cool. And one of the things that you told me before we got started with the recording today is that you actually helped your daughter make a book and publish a book of her own drawings. And tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Well, during Christmas, after I came back from the funeral when my dad died, I wanted to do something therapeutic. I wanted to use my time at night, not just having wine and cheese, but just to be able to do something. And we had talked about, my husband and I talked about Christmas and getting boxes delivered to the house and have her not know that that's for Christmas. And so we had started drawing as a family. And then I had put together a story about how the world helped Santa save Christmas because he couldn't go house to house because of COVID. And so the boxes were delivered. Grandmas and grandpas were inside, so they were calling and being little elves themselves. So then that kind of started the drawing part. And then I realized a couple months later in February, there were all of these drawings. So it really sparked something in Neva, where she is a very good drawer, and I have them everywhere. It's just like you go through, give me a piece of paper. And so I didn't know what to do with them. And then I kind of put them in categories where, okay, here's ponies, here's dogs, what can I do? And then I put together a book saying, what animal do you love? And then just rhyming it with her help. And then I was able to put those pictures, scan them, put them in a book. And instead of giving candy for Valentine's Day at her class, they got a book.
Yeah.
So that, and it helped Neva's self-esteem and self-confidence, because it was really hard.
Yeah.
Going in the middle of the year in January during COVID.
It's a big project, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so cool. Well, getting back to the visit box.
Mm-hmm.
Where you are now in the process is you're starting to have conversations with investors.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to do pitches for groups like 1 Million Cups that are helping you to get ready to go out and pitch for investors. You're getting ready to go to the first show, professional trade show, that you've ever been to for this particular industry. How is it that you've figured out what you need to do step by step?
For the conference?
All of it. Like, talk to me a little bit about, how did you, maybe the work that you've done with SPDC, how did that help get you ready for, each step that you've taken? And how did you really figure out what steps to take?
Yeah. Well, meeting with you always through the years of all the different projects that I've started, and then going to the classes that the Business Center has offered, it really helped calm some of the things you feel like as an entrepreneur, or if you have a challenge with anxiety or depression or anything. You feel like you start this, it fails. You start this, it fails. You start this, it fails. And I realized through going through the classes and connecting with you, it was more like seeds that scatter, seeds that get planted. You just don't know. And you have to have faith in that. So I just had faith in just like research. And I am an introvert.
Yeah.
I am not the mom is the homeroom mom. Like, it's just like very nerve-wracking to try and connect with people. But for some reason, it really helped where connecting up to the Business Development Center to be able to ask questions and then just do the next best thing. So just do that part and it's okay. I do that part, and then having faith that, okay, well, there has to be another open door while I am cooking dinner. I'm just going to do that one little thing, and then we'll do this. Yeah.
How did you figure out what the best next thing was?
That's a good question. I did have an interest in, I always like a bucket list. And one of them was having my own booth at a conference. And that was like, years ago when I was self-publishing, looking at going to Walker Stalker with the Walking Dead Devotional, going to a conference for teens and seeing if they'd be interested. And I just never had that, and now I think there's a lot to say about like passion projects, where something that gets you out of bed and that this has been like something that starts out as very therapeutic, as the visit box was turning into something else. So that's, I just would know that I need to do this part, or and it helped with being able to connect, even though it is difficult. I'm not saying that I'm one to go to networking stuff at the, meet us at brewery, whatever. It's hard. People give me their business cards and I don't give one back.
Yeah.
I'm just like, thank you. And then go get in the car, So I try to take advantage of that next breadcrumb and use that breadcrumb to be able to go to that next thing. Ask that person, and then they lead me to that. It doesn't always work out. But...
I've been to so many networking meetings where the only cards that I have at the end of them are the other two people that I talked to, and I'm taking all of mine back home.
Yeah.
But what I'm really curious about then is that how intimidating was it for you to get up? You did a presentation for 1 million cups, which is a 6-minute presentation with no more than 12 slides. And you have to ask them for a very specific feedback. How intimidating was that for you?
It was hard, and I am one that procrastinates. My husband says, "Are you going to work on that? Are you going to work on that? It's coming up. You know that you need to have it sent in." No, it's like, I will wait. And I don't know if that just means that I'm extremely focused within that little bit of time.
Yeah.
Or I want to cause drama and I don't need it. It was intimidating. But I had that support. I knew that you had shared something about it, that you walked that path. And then also another person, Miss Porter, she had mentioned it and said, you need to give it a try. I'm a troll on websites. So it's like, I'm trying to find as much as I can about it, and pluses and negatives, and just be able to research all of it. So then I can take that in front of them.
Yeah.
And know that this comes from the heart. It might be a little messy, but the second time I had a little bit more like, okay, now this is serious. So I need to get that feedback. And that's okay to get constructive feedback, because it helps you. It's not at that point now where it's like, oh, Regan, it's such a good idea. And then nobody says anything,
Right. Well, so you've done 2 presentations there. You're going to be doing some presentations for some other investment groups coming up. So you're starting to get your public speaking skills together, and now you've got this trade show coming up. What are the things that you're thinking about? I know that you mentioned in our time before the recording that you've already invested in, like, banners and stuff like that. But what are the things that have really, like, what are the things that have seemed really big about going to your first trade show?
Big personally is leaving my family.
Yeah.
I left my family for my dad's funeral. Now I'm leaving my family for the conference of a product that inspired me from his death. And being in an environment that I don't have any experience except being on the other side of attending a funeral. So there's a lot of funeral directors there. There's like 600 people that are going to be there. 90% of them have a lot of experience in the death care industry. And I get a little scared, but then I also get a little motivated.
Yeah.
So it might be that small town girl in me, that Hoosier movie, but it's like, okay, I'm the underdog. So whatever I do has to be better. I don't have anything to measure, I don't have to go back and say, we got so many hearses, or we got so many caskets, it's just like, I'm going, and not so much as I'm so different, but maybe it's like, it's time for something different there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know that being there and coming home, no matter what, it's going to be a better thing for me. It was a bucket list thing. I didn't expect the conference. I thought Walker Stalker, all this. And now I'm like, oh man, this is weird. But anyway, it was on my bucket list. And so I can't say how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's in God's hands. And so I'm excited. The big stuff of, I have never taken orders for anything. I've never had a product to take orders. If somebody wants my book, they just go to Amazon. So kind of things like that, that's big stuff. That's big stuff.
Big new steps.
Yes.
So the next couple of questions that I have are a little bit more specific about certain situations that come up when you bring an idea and you make it a reality. And that is, humans are judgmental. And what's really interesting to me is that a lot of times it sounds like to me that you actually bring your ideas out and you make them into something before anybody else's judgment can even begin to have an impact on you. You're so quick about it. It's like, the books that you had, any kind of judgment that happened after the fact. Right? So
I'm going to beat you to the punch.
So the question that I have is, like, how sensitive are you to the judgmental side of humans when it comes to the ideas and the products that you've created?
Well, just to disclose, and not something I'm ashamed of, but I have a history of mental illness. So I'm very sensitive. I'm very anxious. I have depression. And so I heard a pastor say that your thorn is your mentor. So you learn from something that you feel like is a challenge or a struggle.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have that, and it can drive me. So I can show, I can be my worst enemy. And so I'm going to prove it to myself first. And when it's out there, it is still hard. It is still hard to hear comments that you would not expect from people that know you. You know them. So you're expecting to hear some really positive things. But I think somebody said, as you get, like, I'm not considered myself at the top, like, but once you like try to grow, it gets lonely, if you're going to go into new territory, it's like, oh, now what's Regan doing now, kind of thing. And so you're the joke at the Thanksgiving dinner and stuff. And you just have to understand that is not I have to tell myself, I was born here for a reason. And so they are not going to get it. They didn't wake up in the middle of the night. I did, and the one thing I will say that helps me as I drive and see patients right now, is I think people have, like, I'm not into numerology or anything like that. People have certain signs that they look at from the universe or God. And mine is, when I see number 17, and that is just a reminder, if it's license plates or whatever, it's a reminder of what the day I was born. So I was born on the 17th. And so when I see it, I'm like, okay, yeah, that person doesn't get it, but I know that there's still something here. That was, a small step, I don't know, towards something.
Yeah.
And my father had died on the 18th, and I cringe at that when that date comes. I have a hard time, and I disclose it on Facebook, and worry that you're sharing too much. But when the 18th comes, I'm so worried, but I'm so grateful for the 17th, because that's the day before he died. And it reminds me, you're still here, and it's okay when people don't get it, because that just means that was not for them. And I had to really toughen my skin from my friends and my family. The more strangers I talk to about it, there's a lot of acceptance. And I think that was, that's what, if anything, that's what the Walking Dead devotional did for me.
Yeah. Because
it wasn't the cookie cutter Christian book. And so it was like, what are you doing? We don't want to talk about that. Apocalypse, but no, that's okay. So anyway, I think that friends and family, it was a little harder, but I knew where they were coming from. Past employer, I thought, talking about entrepreneur stuff and, owning your own business and the products, and, some people are just not at that path. And I definitely wasn't 15 years ago.
So that leads me to my last question for you today. If somebody's listening to this and they've got a compelling idea, that idea that wakes them up in the middle of the night, or the idea that they just can't shake, what would you tell them to do next?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say write it down. People talk about all the time about writing stuff down. Write it somewhere. Keep it close by. Just have a tablet. Now, I have probably about 6 tablets, so I know it's harder to do. And then, heavens to Betsy, I would say, if you still have that idea years later, months later, whatever, you have to do something, like take that next step, because there's a reason why you're still having that idea. And everybody has felt this in some way. You have seen something where you had thought about it and somebody must have also thought about it, and it's out there. Yeah. It's like, what? I was just talking about that and somebody actually made it and they're selling it. You gotta be kidding me. So, just be that person, instead of, if you're still waking up, then be that person and just do one thing more. If you wrote it down and just talk to somebody that's trusted, like at the business center, it's like it didn't matter what idea I had. It was like, okay, if you're serious about it, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, yeah, I am serious. I don't want to see that idea out there with somebody else, So it's one of those things, writing it down and then doing the next best thing, and understanding there's a reason why it's still in your mind. There's a reason why you say, oh, if I just had the time, I would write, and I'm not hardcore like some of the entrepreneurs. It's just like the motivational videos of like, make the time, get up at 5 a.m., you bum and stuff, because I can't hear that. I've got depression. So it's like, oh no, I'm tired because of the kids and stuff. You will find the time. You'll be inspired. I feel like there's lights that come on and you can do a lot, and then go back to it and just honor the fact that you were blessed with an idea and it's for you to share.
Awesome. So write it down, find supportive people who are going to say, if you're serious, let's go this way. And then to just, go with the energy that you've got and work with it and make it happen.
Yeah.
Those are all great sound things for us to hear. I want to encourage people to follow you on Amazon. You've got an author page there. And just go there and check out all of the different books that Regan has brought to the marketplace. It's a variety. And it's kind of funny. It's like you could have, if you were somebody who wanted to keep your identity secret, you could have like 7 pen names.
Yes.
But follow Regan on Amazon and find all the books that she's published there. But the other thing that I'd like to encourage you to do is, if you know somebody who is in the death care industry, funeral directors, cemetery managers, caretakers, and you think they might be interested in knowing about the visit box, would you make the introduction to Regan for them? And Regan, what's the best way for people to do that?
Oh, through my website. It's just thevisitbox.com, and you can just put in a thing to reach out to me, or my phone number's on there too.
So if anybody out there is also a product angel investor, and you're looking for a really cool product idea that you can get behind right now, it's early yet, but it's not going to be early for long. So I would encourage you also to reach out to Regan and see how you all might work together to make her product widely used and accepted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Regan. You got anything to say to us in closing today?
Oh boy. I don't know. I always need like a lead. I don't know what
Well,
else, like some kind of subject. What should I say something about?
on a scale of 1 to 10, how scary was doing this podcast?
Oh, well, since I already know you, so it
Yeah.
wasn't as scary. Like I would say 5 because I don't know what this podcast will be like.
Yeah.
But I like to go on tangents. And so I hope that it all makes sense.
So now that it's over, what is it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh, it's a 3.
Okay, so it's not
And
very
not
intimidating.
too stressful. But I got to make sure I have harder skin if you put this out there and somebody says something about me.
Oh, there's going to be trolls. There are always trolls. So we don't care about trolls. We only care about the people who love us.
That's right. And even trolls are cute if you watch Trolls with my daughter.
It was the only movie my son wanted to leave.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kind of freaked him out a little. I shouldn't have said that because he's now 15 and doesn't want people to know. But
Aw. Cut that out.
So with that, I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a close. Thanks, Regan, for being my guest, and best of luck on your product and all of the other product ideas that you wake up with in the middle of the night. And
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. People who work alone aren't antisocial, at least not most of us. If people think you're weird because you don't want to grow a big company and you'd rather spend most of your time working by yourself, you're just hanging around the wrong people. Your Own Best Company has a Facebook group that you're invited to join right now. We understand the urge to close the door, let your imagination run wild, and stay there until your creative impulse runs its course. We also understand the features and challenges that go along with running a business to support our solo flight lifestyles. Joining the group is free, and it's as easy as clicking the link in the channel description. So go there now and just join the group. Want to hear more where this came from? Subscribe to Your Own Best Company on your favorite podcast app or on the Franklin Taggart Coaching and Consulting YouTube channel. To get in touch with Franklin, send an email to yobc@franklintaggart.com. Thanks for listening.